Their first ever NCAA tournament. He swings at the first and lifts it deep to left. Swanson at the wall. That is goal. 3-0 lead. Their first of the tournament on RATACZAK's 17th home run of the year.
Power 5 teams is they're going to throw us more fastballs. They think that we can't handle the fastball, but we can handle the fastball. And both hits in this inning have been on the fastball. That one left in a hurry.
Covered 382 feet before it.
It is that time. It's Moneyball. Welcome, everybody. Cold and snowy outside here today in Buffalo. I have Mr. Eric RATACZAK out in Arizona, not cold and snowy. What's going on, my man?
Not much. How are you?
He had some snacks. He said he needed to power up a little bit before the interview. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe some Raisinets or something, maybe?
A little jerky and mangoes.
Can't beat the jerky. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today, man. I really like, your story. And not to sound cliche, I don't want to sound like every other interview in the world, but we will absolutely jump into what it's like playing, with type 1, or actually reverse that psychology, what it's like playing with everybody's perception of what it's like, right? With type 1, because it seems like to me, man, that you don't let that even be any type of obstacle, that you just say, hey, I have something and everybody else has a hurdle to jump over, and this just happens to be mine. And I love that attitude. Can you tell me a little bit about that right off the bat?
Yeah, man. I think the perception around it is largely that, it comes up as a red flag, as a health risk or a health issue, But for me personally, what I've seen with a lot of other people is in the world of diabetics with who play sports is that it's like, the best thing that ever happened to them. For me personally, my career was more or less saved when I got put on insulin and the weight gain that came from it.
Okay.
And there are a bunch of similar stories out there. I mean, Mason Miller is the biggest one in the baseball world right now.
Who is it? I'm sorry.
Mason Miller, the closer for the A's.
Yeah. Okay.
Went from nowhere D3 to then getting diagnosed and turning into a flamethrower that he is now. I was talking with a guy named Garrett Mitchell, who's the outfielder with Brewers right now.
Yeah.
I was talking with him today, and we were talking about how he's diabetic too. And he's like, man, I've never met a type 1 diabetic who's not just jacked in one way or another, And so that's
a good feeling, right? Coming from a Garrett Mitchell, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. And it's pretty true, man. Even my uncle on my mom's side who's diabetic, he's always, big and strong. And there's definitely a scientific component to the reasoning behind that, but it's pretty cool. And I think all of us in that community would agree that being diabetic has done nothing but help their careers.
And that's not even saying oh, that's such a positive attitude. You're stating facts. You're saying, listen, this is what it's done for me. This isn't trying to be the ultimate optimist. This is you saying, no, listen, legit, this has helped my career. So
my career was dead in the water before I got diagnosed.
So break that down a little bit, man. Dissect that a little bit for me, I guess.
So
where were you at when you? Yeah, I'm sorry. Where were you at when you found out?
So I was diagnosed when I was 19. I was a freshman in college.
Okay.
Out of high school, I had 0 offers to play anywhere, no scholarship for baseball or anything like that. And I was really skinny. I was similar height, but really skinny and didn't have the physicality to my game that I do now. At high school, I was about 6'2", 6'3", 165.
So a beanpole.
Yeah, massive difference.
Okay, yeah, that's enormous.
So out of high school, I had no offers basically, and I went to the University of San Diego as just a regular student. I wasn't recruited or anything.
Okay.
Just went there, essentially hung them up, and because I was the options that I had to play baseball were local D3s, and I'd always wanted to go somewhere for college and see a little bit more of the country and the world.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like it was worth it to go.
Eric,
was
this straight from St. Paul?
Yeah. So I'm just north of Minneapolis, actually, but yeah, basically. So I moved from essentially the cities in Minnesota to San Diego to go to college. And that was 2019. And that fall was when I felt at my worst. I was undiagnosed and suffering, all the bad, symptoms that you do when you're diabetic, which looks like,
What does someone feel? Let's say right now there's a 19-year-old kid watching this, and he's a great athlete. Obviously, you had all the skills in the world because you were already a ball player, and you wouldn't be in the position you were in. So let's pause. There's an 18, 19-year-old athlete, man. He's like, I just can't figure out what's going on. What is he looking for? What were those key ingredients that?
Yeah. So the kind of hallmark one, the biggest one actually, is having to go to the bathroom all the time. I was waking up literally 10 to 15 to 20 times a night to go to the bathroom in my college dorm, walking down
Okay.
the hall.
Okay.
And so the reasoning behind that is because the sugar in your blood is so high that your body tries to get rid of it through the urine. So you just keep peeing and keep peeing.
That is super
And
interesting. That's because,
yeah,
a lot of guys might think they have a prostate issue.
yeah. I mean, me personally, because it all comes out clear too, because your body's not your
Right,
kidneys
right. Yep.
aren't properly recycling all the other components in your urine, and so it comes out looking like you're super well hydrated, and then you're
Yeah.
drinking a bunch of water because you're peeing a bunch. And so I just thought I was really well hydrated.
Yeah,
I
right.
was,
Real
and I was,
hydrated.
yeah. And on top of that, I was, trying because I felt low energy and I was, losing weight. So I was like trying to take care of my health. And so I was like, okay, drink more water. That's a big one. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
And so I just thought I was doing a good job of it. And my mom's a nurse actually. And when I came home for Christmas break that year, she was like, nah, there's something wrong. And then I told her about that, and she like was obviously seeing it too. And she was like, she knew pretty quickly that was one of the hallmark symptoms. And so she had me go in and get tested, and right away they're like, yeah,
And boom, there it was.
Yeah. Yeah, so from a baseball standpoint, I didn't play at USD. I was on the club team there. I tried to walk on, but they never even really took my call. They never even responded to me. I knocked down their door trying to get a tryout. Never did.
So you're 19 and you find out, right? How far into the semester or school year were you?
It was, I mean, when I was diagnosed was during winter break, so after the first semester.
Okay. So you go home, St. Paul, you get diagnosed, you now know what's going on. And do you say, all right, man, it's time to charge it up? Like, how do you then come up with a game plan to get yourself where you want to be baseball fit?
Yeah. So it's interesting because at that point in my life, baseball was more or less behind me.
Okay.
I had in my mind done everything I could to play at the level that I wanted to. And when I got diagnosed, it was more so just like, what does this mean for me long term life situation? Like I had no idea what it sounds like a serious diagnosis, right?
Sure.
It's like a chronic, it's an autoimmune disease. Like there's all these scary thoughts going through your head. Like, what am I going to be able to do? What is going to prevent me from being able to do?
Absolutely.
And so that whole like first month afterward was just going like getting educated a lot, going in, go to a bunch of different doctor's appointments with endocrinologists and
Yep.
learn about all this stuff and how to take care of it day to day. And during all those doctor's visits, every time I'd go in, they'd take your height and weight every time you go to the doctor. And it was going up like 5 pounds. I was going like twice a week to the doctor, and I was going up like 5 pounds every time. Like I gained 20 pounds in a month after being diagnosed.
Were you changing the diet, or were you just doing what you've always been
No,
doing?
it was just insulin. They prescribed insulin, and so
Right away. Okay.
yeah, and it was like that. And my mom's like, she's like, "There's a silver lining in this. Like you're actually gaining weight. You've always, I lifted all the time in high school, never gained any weight. Finally gaining the weight that you want to." And I was like, "Nah, it's not real. It's just like your weight fluctuates like that." But then every time it kept going up, and I was like, "Yeah, you might be right." And then I started doing some more digging on that kind of stuff, and it's a pretty like I said with like the Mason Miller story, it's a pretty common thing where an athlete gets diagnosed and their physicality skyrockets because of the anabolic properties of insulin. And then so from there, I went back to San Diego, freshly diagnosed for the second semester, and continued what was left of her or what. That semester where I went back was when COVID hits. It was the first club ball season for us, but we only played like 2 series before COVID happened. But in those 2 series, I remember there's a ball I hit where I completely got under it, missed it, and spun out over the right field fence. And I was like, I never. And so we're just at home, and me and a couple of my buddies from high school are essentially just going and long tossing at the field every day. And like all of our baseball friends, like we got nothing to do.
Sure.
And it's, nice spring weather in Minnesota. So we're just basically out doing baseball stuff just for the fun of it. They were all, still playing in school. So they're trying to stay in shape. But I was just, enjoying it.
Screwing around. Yeah.
And then the next year, it was either go back to USD but going back to USD would have been just Zoom classes because school was still shut down. That was still in the midst of COVID, and it would have been the same tuition price and everything, which is pretty steep at that school, even despite the academic scholarships I had.
Right. Which
so
is
I decided
cool,
to
actually, that, and let's not let that slide there. I mean, you still, like going in and thinking like, okay, I'm not going to go in to play ball. You still had academic scholarships, which obviously says, a lot about your cerebral as well.
Yeah, and I'd still probably argue that I was a better student than I ever was an athlete. So I took the year off that year of school completely because I didn't want to pay full tuition for Zoom
Yeah.
class. And then once I made that decision, I heard from an old coach of mine that he was starting a post grad team out of a facility, a high school facility near my house.
Okay.
And what I did that year, I ended up playing for that post grad team, but then also helping coach the high school kids. And so we'd go in the mornings when high school was in session, and then I would help coach the younger kids, the high school kids, once they came in the afternoon.
Okay.
And so the price of it ended up being very negligible. Like, it was basically breaking even money wise. And I got to do all this awesome baseball training. It's called Minnesota Post Grad, and I don't know how many years in now they are, maybe 6 or so. But honestly, like, some of the best training I've done in my life, because there was no school involved. It was just show up and train all day and like really dive into yourself as a player.
If you're anything like me, you believe in the universe, you believe in karma, and you believe in things working themselves out. And the place and time and where you ended up is part of your story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just being ready for opportunities when they come about, and they'll present themselves, and you just take advantage.
So Stella got her groove back, right? You started feeling it, when you started working out with those kids again, the post grad team.
Yep, definitely,
Okay.
definitely.
That stoked the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And found out I could hit the ball a lot harder than I used to be able to. And he started measuring everything with the exit velo and bat speed and all that.
Yep.
And then so to try and fast forward a little, because it is a long story. From there, I got an opportunity to play in the Northwoods League during the summer.
Okay.
On a temp contract. Played there, did well enough, did all right. I hit like 270 or something like that with nothing, no good power numbers. But then from there, got an opportunity to play junior college. So the next year, I went to Wabash Valley, which is a junior college in Illinois. Played there for a fall, but quickly realized that I was pretty behind on the depth chart that they had. And because I was already older for a junior college standard, I was like, I need to get on the field this year. So I really wanted to be in a position where I could play every day, and I wasn't going to be there. So I transferred to a different junior college.
I was going to ask you, like, how nervous are you getting as this stuff's going on with time and age? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, that's got to be dude, that's got to be such a tough feeling though. Like, because you have the talent and stuff, and it's almost like everything's a blessing and a curse, right? And you could say, man, why didn't I find out 1 year ago or something, or 2 years ago, right? But maybe you never find out at all too. So everything has its place. But again, I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I'm like, oh my God, man, like, now you're feeling like, I got to speed this up. I got to get going.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was feeling. And that's why I transferred. So I transferred to a JUCO in Arizona called Arizona Western.
Okay.
In Yuma, Arizona, and played the spring there. And again, did all right, but the power numbers still weren't there. And as a, big lefty outfield first base guy, like, you need the power numbers.
Sure. And
so that summer I was waiting and waiting and waiting for options that were never going to come, looking back on it. Like, the numbers weren't good enough for the places that I wanted to play at.
Yep.
This probably be the crazy part for you too, is so essentially in August that year, it was the end of August, and I hadn't received any sort of offer that was worthwhile in my mind. And basically a week before classes started, packed up and went back to San Diego because I had no other options. So I re-enrolled at USD again as a student, not recruited at all by the program.
Well, how old? 21?
I would have been 21, I think. Yeah, 21 and turned 22 then in January.
Dude,
that year.
2 years go by and you're like, oh my God, I found all this out and I'm right back where I started.
I don't blame colleges for not taking a look at me out of high school. Like, I was not the player to be looking at.
Right.
But anyways, I'm back at San Diego, and I'm playing club ball again, and I'm playing intramural softball and stuff. And one of my favorite stories to tell is that I showed up to our first intramural softball game with metal spikes on, and they're like, you can't wear it. Like, this is co-ed, like, intramural softball. You can't wear metal spikes. Yeah. That was the mind state that I was in. It was like all this competitive energy pent up that was getting released into like beach volleyball and intramural softball and stuff.
Dude, you probably had the knockers on, man. You probably had you had everything. You're all ready to go. They're like, who is this guy? Look out.
And we won too. We won that year. So I'm in business.
Guys probably clobbered people.
Yeah. It was but anyway, during that year at USD, I get a DM on Twitter from a summer team in Canada called the Brooks Bombers. And they said, have you found a place to play this summer? We need guys. And I was like, I don't have a place to play right now. And they basically said, that's fine. We don't care. We need guys. We saw what you did in JUCO. Like, we're happy to have you. And so I was like, sweet, another chance to.
And you didn't think you knocked anybody's socks off at JUCO, right?
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, there were definitely, like, I played well enough in JUCO and in the Northwoods that one summer to, like, for some places to say, like, he could, is worth a spot, but
The
it wasn't.
very last go around before you went back to San Diego.
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
but it wasn't the kind of thing where it was enough to, like, get to a D1 program and have a chance to be a draft guy. Like, it wasn't, like, hey, this guy's a guy. But it was enough for this. I mean, Brooks, Alberta is a small town, and they are, I love my time there, but they're definitely trying to compete in a league where it's very hard for them to get players because the other teams are more attractive options, basically.
Of course.
And so I was the guy.
Not to mention it's Canada and they're obsessed with hockey.
Yeah, right. But so basically they're like, yeah, we'll give you, we'll take you. And that was the first chance I felt like I got to really put together the combination of the added strength with kind of the training that I had done over the 3 or so years since being diagnosed. And that's when it really opened up for me. I was getting homers all over the place and won Rookie of the Year in that league and was in the home run derby and the All-Star game and all that. Like, it was definitely the best I'd played up to that point.
How do you feel? And again, man, I'm very sorry for keep interrupting you, but that's when I know I'm in a good conversation with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm just sitting here listening to you and you got me snoozing or something, then there's no cruise control here. I'm fully involved.
Yeah.
But what in your opinion was that competition like playing up there with those guys?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I would equate it very similarly to the school I ended up playing at next, which is Niagara University, which is kind of a mid-major Division I level.
Yep.
It was a lot of JUCO guys and a lot of Canadian-based guys who maybe played at bigger programs or just wanted to stay home. But yeah, I'd say it was around kind of mid-major D1 level. It is a big mix, and depending on the pitcher you got that day, it could have felt like
so there'd be so that's what I was so there'd be a big drop off, right? Like say your starter's coming in and this guy's maybe a little bit well known, right? And he gets beat up a little bit and this guy comes in and the reliever comes in the fourth inning. You could have a dramatic drop off.
Yeah. You get a guy throwing 84 straight as an arrow.
Yeah. But you're saying, listen, licking your chops. Let's take advantage of this. Let's get after
it. Absolutely.
Dog on bone, baby.
And so a lot of the players for Niagara had a few guys in that league. And so they were one of the, I caught a few schools' attentions with my play that summer because it was pretty good. But with the route that I've explained, it becomes pretty evident that it's a difficult compliance case. And so they were actually the only school that was interested and also able to figure out that I would be eligible for their school that year.
So now let's fast forward. You're at Niagara and you knocked the cover off the ball at Niagara, right? I mean,
the success from that summer definitely rolled right into the season and kind of picked up where I left off.
But dude, tell me a little bit then. Okay, at Niagara, and having that season, and then let's go into the transformation of getting drafted, right? I think was it 15 or 16? How did all of this, like, think about when you're 19 years old at San Diego, right? Towel thrown in, probably like hanging out with SEALs in La Jolla, right? Hey, my name's about to get called, or a team calling you, the Marlins calling you and saying, hey, bro, we're calling you. I got to know about this. Tell me about this experience.
Yeah, so about halfway through the season at Niagara was when I started getting interest from area scouts, and that whole process kind of started. And it more or less made sense based on the year I was having. Like, it wasn't the most surprising, but that didn't change how surreal it felt, with the history. And I had a couple down series and whatnot throughout the season, but more or less kept it up through the whole season. And so that definitely drew attention from, like I said, from the area scouts and whatnot. And then winning the conference was super beneficial because I know for a fact now that our director of scouting was that's when he was able to watch me play. It was at the regional in Stillwater. I talked with Alex Smith, scout for the Marlins, previously at games at Niagara. So so you kind of make a little bit of a name for yourself throughout the regular season, then get seen a little bit in the postseason. And then given the age and situation, wanted to do everything I could to boost whatever draft stock I had. So that summer I played in the draft league, which is kind of the summer league around Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey area, and did all right there too. And the other component of this is I'm also in the transfer portal while this is all going on. And
that's become a big deal.
Yeah, because I had one more year of eligibility, and so I committed to Tennessee this summer. So if I would have gone back to school, I would have played at Tennessee.
Wow.
which was,
Okay. Which isn't a
uh,
bad thing. Wow. So hold on. I gotta hear it.
yeah,
So that little subtle thing might be the craziest because think about this trajectory, right? Say your name's
yeah,
not called or you don't get the phone call. Again, you got to believe in the universe and that you're supposed to be where you are. But and of course, you got drafted, so you don't ever say, oh, maybe I should go back. No, but it's wild to think about though, right? And how is your mental right now with the age thing? Do you let that discourage you at all?
I try not to. I'm early enough on in my career as a pro ball guy that at this point with the shorter draft and everything, like if they take you for a reason.
Yes, yes. That's what
Um,
I've been telling all these.
so yeah, so I don't think about it too much right now, but it is in the back of my head in the sense of, okay, if you haven't climbed the ranks at all in 2 years, like you're all of a sudden you're really far behind. Like if I can, make an impact and get up to double A, triple A within a short amount of
Correct.
time,
Correct.
then all of a sudden I'm right back on pace with everybody.
Which I could
Um,
not agree with
but if,
more.
if there's just not as long of a leash for me, which is, that's just how it goes.
Yeah, but a couple positives. And number one being position, right? So I think you definitely have an advantage playing one, than you do playing three short or two, right? Because the athleticism, and I don't mean that disrespectfully at all, but I mean that, even outfield, like your position is going to help you there, bro. You're not
Yeah.
going to be a shortstop at age
Yeah.
20. You're just not. These guys are too
Yeah.
young, they're
No,
too fast.
yeah. I played first base all year at Niagara and then I played a lot of outfield once I got signed. And that's, has been partially because of what they need, but partially intentionally by me trying to like show that I can play outfield. It
Yeah, yeah.
opens up.
Yeah. It's crazy now to see the technology, right? And it's more so in baseball than any other sport right now. And trust me, man, I'm interviewing all these guys, hockey players, football players, all different levels, from college to pros to retired guys. And now, you see these things like guys get set up like they're going to be on a video game, right? With all these wires and stuff. And how crazy is it? And do you think it's as effective as it's led on?
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny, the wire thing actually is outdated. They don't need those anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I showed up thinking I was going to do that, and they're like, no, we don't do that anymore. We don't the new cameras. You don't even need it. Yeah.
Eh,
So it took some of the fun out of it for me. I was like, dang, I wanted to hook up all the
Yeah.
wires. But
The green screen in
but
the
no,
back.
yeah, to your question about how effective you think it is, I think it's just another tool, right? And so I think depending how it's used, it can be very effective or it can just kind of be nothing. But as
Okay.
someone who came,
That's actually
I
really,
studied
that's a really good
biology.
answer. That's a really good answer, dude. Like, that's a really good answer because you're not overselling it and you're not underselling it. You're like, it's
Yeah,
however you want to use it.
yeah. No, I was a biology student in school, and so I was the science based, the science minded training has always
Okay.
been very attractive to me. And so they're basically, they're not going to be the old school teacher who's like, this is how it's worked for me and everybody else and how I'm gonna
Yeah.
they just look at exactly what the numbers say based on your mocap and your, swing, your blast motion sensor data and your batted ball data and all that. And they say, okay, this is all the data that we've collected on MLB players and all stars and everything like that and how it falls into the buckets for them. And this
Okay.
is what yours looks like. And how
Okay.
can we make
All
yours
right.
look like theirs?
See, that makes more sense to me. So that
Yeah.
makes more sense because that way, regardless if you think if it's a good tool or a bad tool or whatever, it at least is a measuring stick.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all it
So,
is. Yeah.
and that's very useful because, let's say you and Mitchell, for example, just because he's there, but you guys are training one day and you're looking and you're like, okay, my numbers are, so it's a good measuring
Yeah.
stick.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and so here you are, man, right? You're doing all this work, man. You're grinding, and I can see it. I can hear it in your voice, and I can see it in your face that you absolutely, I wouldn't say need this, but like you're driven, bro. And I can see it, and I respect the
Yeah.
hell of it. Confident going in. You're playing with these dudes right now. Do you feel you're where you're supposed to be? And I don't, you gotta always
Yeah.
remember that, bro. You gotta always remember that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Whatever path you took, whatever path someone else took, I don't care if they were drafted from Venezuela when they were 12. Your path, that
Mhm.
was their path, and this is your path, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be, right? And you're supposed to be with those other pros, and there's no difference at all. Do you feel that
Yeah.
confident?
Yeah. That's the other thing that I was going to mention is all that, tech is one thing and all the data driven stuff is one thing. The other thing that's super beneficial about and attractive about this company is that you're put in an environment, a training environment on the floor with, big league guys and first rounders and 10th rounders and free agents and everything in between. And so it it's a great just environment to be in around all those guys to challenge yourself with guys like that. Like we've had, Travis Passan's been coming in
Oh yeah,
recently, and so he's,
he blew up out of here, man. Yeah.
yeah, and same
Now,
draft.
are you?
And
Do you
about
get
400 picks in between?
do you get intimidated? Do you get intimidated with those guys? Or I mean, that goes right back to what I was just saying. Like with you're supposed to be there. Do you see him walk into the room? Do you feel any
Yeah.
or are you like, hey, what's up?
I mean, yeah, some of those guys definitely carry a certain
Okay,
weight
yeah,
with them.
yeah.
And I'll be as honest and as real as I can.
I appreciate
Um,
that.
yeah, it's probably won't, I don't know how it'll come off, but honestly, in that environment, the way that my tools play, like I am really good at hitting the ball hard, and have where I struggle more so is launching the ball in the air and having that stuff translate then over to real pitching.
Sure.
Because the holes in your swing, when it's in this training environment
You're kicking
where it's a little bit more predictable, the way I like to explain it is that the blast motion sensor, I don't know if you're familiar with those. They
Yeah,
track
of
bat
course.
speed,
Yep,
pull out
yep.
a bunch of metrics. If you ask blast motion, I'm a big league all-star.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
So in that environment, the intimidation is, it's not super existent for me because,
Yeah, but
like,
good for you, man.
I
Because
can hit the ball harder than a lot of these guys. Like,
yeah.
Travis was saying the other day, he's like, man, I wish I could hit the ball as hard as, and I'm
Dude,
like,
that's amazing,
I
right?
wish I could hit the ball as consistently as you and in the air. Like, you may not hit it as hard as I do, but somehow you're hitting it better than I am,
Well, you have that guy
So,
just finished playing 130 games for the Indians, and like he's saying that to you. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty phenomenal.
so it's always a combination of encouraging and discouraging because it's like, okay, I can do everything these guys can do. And then on top of that, it's like, well, I'm not in the big leagues yet. These guys are big. Some of these guys are big leaguers. And so
Just the path you took.
it's the combination of both, but ultimately the environment is good in that you're surrounded by guys who are successful, and that breeds successfulness.
My favorite thing about you after spending this 45 minutes with you is not once have you ever looked at this disease or, this impairment, if you will, as poor me or, a couple times in the conversation. I'm not going to say I tested you because I don't do that, but I was kind of looking, when I was saying the age thing and stuff like that. And hey, if I had only found out when I was 16 or 17, right?
Yeah, that's definitely there, man. Don't get me wrong.
But, well,
it's definitely there. It's just,
bro, you got it. Listen to me. You got it.
it doesn't do any good to focus on that.
And you got to just think that God put you where he did for a reason. Like, what's to say you didn't find out when you were 16 or 17, right? And you're 18 years old and, you were up playing a little bit higher than you should have, and you suffered an injury because of that. You're trying to compete so hard and it ruined you. It ruined your career. So it's just, that's good to look at it, bro. When do you turn, are you 24 now?
Yeah, I'm 23, so I'll turn 24 in January.
You're a young buck, man. I thought you were going to turn 25 in January.
No, yep, 24 in January.
Okay, so listen, man, sky's the limit, bro. I'm really happy we had this conversation.
It's definitely something I need to get on the radar of.
Well, you're very impactful. You're an impactful guy, man. You come across a certain kind of way. You're a likable person, and I'm not, I'm just being honest because I'm very direct with the way I speak with people. You have a way about you where you're not arrogant, and you're also not too far on the other end, right? So you have a nice balance. But I think what I'm hoping is that there might be a lot of kids out there right now, boys, girls, whoever, that are dealing with this that don't know. Think about that, right? That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest way you could help is like there's a 16-year-old right now, right? Who has the talent, right? He's just, he has the talent and he can't gain the weight and there's something going on. And then he hears Eric's story and he's like, oh my God, man. And he goes and gets checked out. Think about that. Think about changing one life from somebody who the story. And, like I said, my son plays travel ball. So I'm involved with I coach ball and stuff. So I'm involved with a lot of that world. Coach Ball Game has been on the show. The travel dad, Mark Paul, the goofy travel dad guy, right? So we share each other's stories and podcasts and stuff like that. And again, affecting one kid who's like, oh my God, this dude, I finally know what's wrong with me,
Yeah.
So
I think honestly, what I try and tell people, especially guys who are newly diagnosed, like when I was diagnosed, I was super scared. I was, terrified. I didn't know what it meant for me. And like we had talked about, it wasn't even baseball at that point. I didn't know what it meant for me as, someone who just enjoyed being active in general. It's the big health disability, disability, like
right.
affect my lifestyle to the point where I can't do these things that I love to do. What I want to tell people who like don't even go through that situation. Like, don't even think like that. If you're in that, like, let me have gone through that for you. Don't think like that. Honestly, as honest as I could be, like, get excited because you're probably going to be better at doing that stuff now that you're diagnosed than you ever have been in the past. Like, get excited.
That's cool, man. You're a class act for sure, man. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool, man. I think that, you know, that comes across, and that's what people are going to see for sure. Last question, I'll give you a fun one, man. What's your favorite Michael Jackson song?
Yeah, that's a good one, man. I like Smooth Criminal.
Solid. That's solid.
Maybe it's not necessarily my favorite song, but it's kind of like my favorite one that encapsulates Michael Jackson and what he brings that other people don't, I guess.
That's a great answer. This really was a lot of fun, man. Let's keep in touch for sure. Enjoy the rest of your day, okay?
Cool. Thanks. You too.
All right, you got it, man. Thank you.